Good evening, everybody. My name is Sally Partridge and welcome to the Foundation Learning Virtual Open Evening. I am joined this evening by Sandra White, who is the head of school for this area. I don't know, Sandra, do you want to say hi?
Good evening, everyone.
Super. So first of all, thank you very much for attending the open event. As I work through the presentation, if you've got any questions, you can add them into the question box or the chat box as we go along, and then we will answer the questions at the end of the presentation. If you're somebody who's watching this on playback and it's not live, obviously that option isn't available. And I will be sharing our emails at the end of the presentation, so you can email on any of those options if you've got some questions following on from the presentation. So here's just a welcome video just to give you a feel of our area as a whole.
You know you want to take the next step in education, but you're not sure what to do. Solihull College and University Centre's foundation learning programmes include English, Maths, Personal Social Development and Tasters in a range of subjects. Improve your skills in order to progress to Level 1 and Level 2 courses. Experience studying a variety of subjects like art, business, animal care, IT and sport, and take part in trips to build essential teamworking skills. Foundation learning will open your eyes to the best route for you. Take your education to the next level. Discover your future at Solihull College and University Centre.
The video shows foundation learning area, obviously, as it should look. Given the current circumstances, there are some restrictions to the learning that are taking place. But hopefully, for those of you that are watching this video or this presentation, then we are talking about September 2021, and we should be back to our normal way of working. So what is foundation learning? There are many strands to foundation learning area. We have a Get Into Further Education programme, which is an entry level 3 programme for 16 to 18-year-olds. Now, this is for learners who might not have got the qualifications to get onto a level 1 programme in a vocational area at Solihull College. For whatever reason, it might be they haven't attended college, they haven't attended school all the time, or they've had some disruptions at home. So we have that programme available to those young people. We also have the Get Into Further Education REACH programme, which is for young people with an education, health and care plan. This generally starts at entry level 2 for our learners, and it's a real stepping stone into getting into further education. It's the next step for a lot of learners who have been in special schools within quite a small environment. It gives them that next step into coming into a larger college. And we have supported internships, which I'll go into in a little bit more detail further on. So for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to focus mainly on the Get Into Further Education REACH programme. So as I've said, it's a provision for young people with education, health and care plans. The provision is open for 16 to 25-year-olds, but if they are 18 plus, they do have to have the education, health and care plan in place. It's much smaller group sizes than the rest of the college, because a lot of these learners will have come to us from very small class sizes. So to expect them to go into a general further education programme where there are 20 plus learners, it's quite a big ask. So we have a smaller group size, and the aim is that we're going to build personal and social skills, we're going to build confidence, and we're going to get those learners able to come into such a big environment and to grow as individuals whilst they're there. The learners will work towards a pre-vocational or a vocational studies qualification at the appropriate level, whether that be entry 2 or entry 3. And alongside that, they will obviously learn maths and English. The course can be completed over 2 years. So if a young person comes to us and they do a year on pre-vocational studies, and it's felt that they would benefit from another year of that smaller group size, heavily supported class, then we can offer this over 2 years. So it's just a bigger stepping stone for some learners, because that is what some learners need. And I think a key takeaway from this is that unlike independent specialist colleges who are able to offer 5-day provision, a general further education college has a full-time provision, which is 3.5 days. And that is what we class as full-time provision. And I think that's really important that people are aware of that when they're making their choices and their decisions. So let's meet the team. You were meant to see my face at the start of this. I do apologise. So we have Sandra White, who's with us this evening, who is our head of school. And myself, Sally Partridge. I am the lead coordinator for courses for adults and supported internships. And then we have quite a large team of tutors who will teach on the programme. We have Laura Jackson, who has an art speciality. We have Craig, who's come to us with a wealth of knowledge, working with young people in confidence building and teamwork and team skills. We have Hilary, who has also come from a background of working with young people with additional needs, as has Adam. And then we have Rob, who's another person who with an art background. So they're all tutors that the young people might come across. And moving forwards, if you want to revisit this presentation, I'm going to come to what happens when you apply. But it might be nice if you do apply and you do get invited in for an interview, if you want to contact somebody to find out who will be interviewing you. I know for some young people it's nice to see who they're going to meet, so you can use these photographs to introduce the person to your young person, so they've got a face to add to a name. So how do you apply for the programme? There is an online application form. We sit under Foundation Studies, as I've said, on the Solihull College website. There's many programmes under that title. And if you search for Get Into Further Education and then scroll down to the bottom of the screen, there is an Apply Now button. So you fill in the online application form, and that generates information internally to come to us, and we contact you and invite you in for a one-to-one interview with a member of the team who you've just met. Those learners who have an education, health and care plan will have an allocated support tutor. Now, where possible, that support tutor will be at the interview alongside a member of the Foundation Learning team. On occasion, that isn't possible, and that might be because the support tutor has already met the young person prior to interview, or the support tutor will arrange to meet the young person following the interview. And I'm going to come on to the support tutor role and support that's allocated in a moment, because I know that's always a key question for parents. Then following the interview, provisional places are offered onto whichever programme, whether it be the Get Into Further Education or the Get Into Further Education REAP programme, dependent on what we feel is most appropriate to the student. So our area, the college is very big. And if this was an open evening, as we normally do open evenings, one of the key concerns that parents have is the general size of the college. And I'm able to reassure people when I see them on a face-to-face basis of how the college is laid out. It's very much in sections. So our learners are based on the 4th floor. There are 3 lifts, one of which is key coded. So if a learner doesn't feel able to go into the big lifts, which are busy, or they have a need to use a smaller lift, then we have a lift that is designated to people with additional needs, and it's key coded that they can use. So a learner, unless they are doing a vocational taster, and I'm going to come on to that in a moment, They don't actually need to access any other area in the college, because the first, second and third floors are allocated to specific areas. So the majority of the learning will take place within our own area. So all the buildings that are around the outside of the college are dedicated to different departments. Sport has their own area, science does, as does land-based. And because of that, the college all of a sudden becomes much smaller, because they only need to access one area. With regard to support, I will mention in a moment about learning support assistants, and we can support students in the first instance to find their way around college if students or parents are worried about that when they first arrive. So in addition to us, we have the additional support team are based on the 4th floor. So the student support tutor and the learning support assistants will all be very accessible on the 4th floor, and the foundation learning team staff room is also on the 4th floor. So if ever they need their personal tutor, or if ever they need a tutor for the afternoon's lesson, we're all based in the same area. We do have an inclusive policy in relation to vocational areas. So if the students, for instance, were to choose to do a land-based element when they're doing their vocational tasters, we would expect the students to go to the land-based department to undertake that learning. That's not to say we'd expect them to go on their own. Oh dear, Sean, I might need your help here again. Hang on, no, I'm all good, look at that. That's not to say we would expect them to go on their own. We would have a learning support assistant that would support them to find their way over to the land-based area. But that supports in the transition from the get into further education into a wider offer around the college in vocational areas. So if they've got used to going there on the occasional basis, it builds their confidence and it gets them ready for that next step when they're ready to move on. So moving on, progression routes for Reach learners. We have 3 strands of progression: supported internships, choices, both of which I'm going to talk about in a moment, which are the areas that I coordinate, and further get into programs or level 1 programs. So the college has a wide variety of vocational areas. I'm going to name just a few: art, business, sport, animal care, health and social care, public services, hair and beauty, and then over at our Woodlands campus we have construction and motor vehicle in very specialised units. Some of those areas have a get into programme, which, similar to us, is an entry level 3 programme, but whereas ours has numerous tasters involved, the get into programmes in the vocational areas are very specific to that vocational area. So it might be that a learner comes to us and does an entry level 3 vocational qualification, and then they're not quite ready to go on to a level 1 within their chosen vocational area. So they could sidestep from an entry level 3 with us into an entry level 3 on their chosen vocational subject before moving on to level 1 in that vocational subject. And that is what a number of learners do, because it challenges them in being in a bigger group, and it challenges them in being in a wider environment within the college, but it doesn't necessarily challenge them academically as much as going on to a level 1 programme would do. At that point, you still get support as well, and I'm going to come on to that in a moment. So your other 2 options following on from Reach are our choices offer. So this is a programme for adults with learning difficulty who are over 18 years of age. There are a world of programmes within that brochure. If you imagine, we've got taster sessions from pretty much all of our vocational areas within the college. We also have a designated area where we offer life skills programs. So within there, we have kitchen facilities, we have washing machines, we have a bathroom that can be cleaned. We have beds that can be made in order for us to teach students those life skills that they really, really need to have moving forwards. Once again, it's 3.5 days is the maximum, which is equivalent to 16 hours. So if you were to decide you wanted to go onto the adult provision once they've done 2 years on the REACH programme, they can by all means come in and do up to 16 hours, but we do have to limit it to 16 hours. It can't be a full 5-day provision, but it can be a very individualised timetable, and every person coming onto the programme will have their own set hours and their own set programmes that they learn. So supported internships. This is very new to college. It has been running, we are now in our 3rd year. Obviously, given the current climate, we are not in a position to be offering students internships within employers, unfortunately. So last year we worked with a variety of employers, including the Crown Plaza in Stratford and Solihull. We worked with 2 nurseries, Wiggles and Giggles and Reynolds Cross School Nursery. We worked with Coleridge Enterprises, we worked with John Lewis, and we worked with Touchwood Shopping Centre, amongst other people. We had a variety of other employers on board for this year, including Birmingham Children's Hospital, the Alexandra Hospital, and Solihull Council are working alongside us to try and develop internships within their departments as well. So a supported internship is the next step following foundation learning and following any other learning that follows on after that. And it's for students who have an education, health and care plan, and they do actually have to have a current education, health and care plan to be eligible to go on this programme. Up to the age of 24, they access their workplace 3 days a week and are in college to continue with their maths and English and employability skills on 1 day per week. We have a job coach allocated to each of those learners who actually goes onto the workplace and supports the learner in their work, which is fantastic. It's really, really good for all of the learners involved. It is the next step. It's a long way off for those of you who are talking about students who are just leaving school. But it's something that you can approach me about if you have an 18-year-old learner now. I say 18, does say they're available to 16. There is a reluctance with employers to employ 16-year-olds. And I do have to agree that the learning that I see students taking on between 16 and 18 at Solihull College is huge, and 2 years after being in quite an adult environment, they're a very different person to that they were when they were 16. Additional support. So individuals with an education, health and care plan will have an allocated support tutor, as I mentioned earlier. They will go through the education, health and care plan, and they will assess the level of need of the learner. I'm assuming at this point that we have already determined that we can meet need at Solihull College. There is a step prior to that for some learners who have an EHCP, in that we need to be named within that document, and Dave Wedgbury, the manager of the additional support team, needs sight of it. So at this point, I'm assuming we have said we can meet need. So the support tutor goes through that document, assesses the level of need, and then support is allocated on a very individual basis. So it isn't one size fits all. It isn't that every student is met every term or every student is met every 2 weeks. It's very, very individualised. So some students are met every week, some students are met every half term. Learning support assistants likewise can be allocated support during classroom time. They can also be allocated support during recreational times. As I mentioned before, they can be met at the start of the day and at the end of the day if you wish to. Be supported to either meet outside. And then that support in an ideal world tapers off. So for instance, I've had one young man come to me this week who has said he would like to start walking from the classroom to the front of the college with his friends rather than having a learning support assistant go with him. So we've communicated with Mum. Mum is happy for this to happen. And that young man will now be walking to the front of the building independently. We've just negotiated how we're going to make sure that Mum has him outside. So the idea is that we're going to develop that independence as and where we can. So if any of you have any questions in relation to support, David Wedgbury is the additional needs manager. He allocates support tutors and he has responsibility for the learning support assistants as well. So if you want to make a note of his email address, or you can go back and watch this again and pick it up there. So that is the end of my presentation for this evening. There are 3 email addresses here. You have the general inquiries email. If you are looking at level 1 programs and you want to send a general inquiry about a level 1 program, that is probably your best line of inquiry, or just go on the website and have a look. If you're interested in specifically the foundation learning, which is the get into further education or get into further education reach, or the adult provision or supported internships, it's Sandra and I that you need to email. And obviously these will be on the website and easily accessible for you to come in and find and give us an email. Or you can phone the direct line switchboard and ask to be put through to us, and we're more than happy to talk to you on the telephone. So thank you very much for watching this presentation. There are further videos of the college online on the college website. So if anybody wants to go and have a look at the college as a whole, you want to go and have a look at the campus tour and the 360-degree video, you can go onto the website and do that. That might be helpful if you've got a learner who's concerned about coming for the first time to an interview or anything like that. Along with them being able to see a face of who they're coming to meet, they could have a look at the actual campus itself and the buildings that they're going to be coming to. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and we can go to answer any of the questions that have come through on the chat. Thank you very much for listening. Hello, Sandra. So, Sandra, have we had many questions coming through?
No.
Can you tell me who the best person to talk to? My son has an issue. Hang on. Is that in the chat? Let me have a look. Can you see? Oh, I've got it. Can you tell me who the best person to talk to? My son has an EHCP. It will be 17 next September. He already has level 1 and 2 in maths and English, but requires much more support than a mainstream class. Jane, that very much depends on, is it a level 1 and level 2 in maths, or is it an entry level 1 and an entry level 2 in maths? Because sometimes people can get confused between the two. And where is he at the moment? Is he within a special school, or is he in a mainstream school? And does he want to go on to, does he have a specific idea of a vocational option that he wants to take? Would be my questions in relation to that. I'm sorry, I can't give you a more specific answer. Sandra, do you want to add to that?
Well, I think I'd probably start with Dave Wedgbury, and Dave would probably be able to as well with his EHCP. But yeah, I think Sally's right. It really so functional skills level 1 and level 2. Yeah. If you look on the website generally, or all the courses will be open to your son. So have a look there at the entry requirements. Have a look, see sort of what he might be interested in, and then Dave Wedgbury is the person who would be able to provide support then, subject to us being able to meet those needs within lessons and with a support tutor as well. So there's nothing to stop applying for anything that you really fancy. Just have a look on the website. All the courses are there under 16 to 18 provision, and have a look down there. But just, go for it.
And I think
Sean's put it on.
There you go. And going back to what I said about support within the presentation, Dave's Wedgbury is obviously there. He's David Wedgbury at solihull.ac.uk. And once again, your young person would be allocated a support tutor, no matter what level programme they were on, if they've got an education, health and care plan. And it might be that they need a one-to-one to manage that large class in a mainstream environment. But as Sandra said, Dave is definitely your person to speak to about that level of support that you're going to need.
Yeah.
Anybody else got any more questions?
We've got one in the Q&A.
Oh, we have. I've just seen the Q&A. My daughter is keen to do the early years course. She has an EHCP, and I'm wondering if she will need to go through the get into route first. She's working at a 3 or 4 in maths and English and is in mainstream but needs lots of support. I'm assuming you're, I'm going to answer live. I am assuming you're talking about a GCSE grade 3 or 4 in maths at this point, at which point I would say definitely go via early years. Sounds to me like she knows what she wants to do. She's clearly got a good level in maths and English. And once again, as with the person that we spoke about before, Dave Wedgbury's team would allocate a support tutor, and the relevant support would be there to make sure that she can cope within that mainstream environment.
Definitely.
Does that answer your question? And it's exactly the same across the board throughout Solihull College, in that if you go into the website, find the programme you're interested in, scroll to the bottom of the screen to the apply now button, and when you apply, at the bottom of the application form there's a question that says, does your young person have an additional need? And it's vital that you tick that box, because what that box does is it generates a referral directly to the additional support team, which means that someone from the additional support team will be notified that somebody is coming in for an interview who needs a support tutor there. So that makes it a seamless process, I'm going to say, that those young people who need the support tutor at interview and need to know what the support needs are, they get the staff there from day one.
The other thing I'd like to say is that we work very closely with all the vocational areas as the foundation learning department. So if, for instance, you applied for early years and, you know, when you got there, you felt that your daughter needed a year in foundation learning first, or that was the advice that early years gave to you, it doesn't sound like she does if she's predicted a grade 3 or a 4, but if it was, then we would be happy to meet with you and your daughter anyway, and then you can make a choice. So but the support's all through, it's not just in our area, you know, support's provided throughout the college.
Any more questions? Haven't got any in the Q&A, haven't got any in the chat. This video will be uploaded. I'm actually going to ask Sean if I can redo it, because I fluffed bits of my presentation. So the video will go up, I'm sure, Sean, I don't know when. So you can go back
in the next few days at some point,
Super.
by early next week latest.
I'm just, can I put stuff, oh, I can look at this. I'm going to, because I know we flew through. Solihull.ac.uk. That is just in case anybody missed Dave's and you want it before the presentation goes up. That is Dave's email address, and I'll just pop mine in as well. So if any of you've got any burning questions that you don't want to ask in a public forum, or you think, I wish I'd asked that, they're there in the meantime while we're waiting for the presentation to go up onto the website. Oh, great minds think alike, Sean, look at that. Please feel free to contact us anytime with any questions, and we'll come back to you as soon as we can.
Mm-hmm. And obviously subject to what restrictions and what's happening in the world in next year, I'm sure Sally will agree, and we're very happy if anyone wants to come along and meet with us in person. When we're not in a position to be able to do that at the moment, but things hopefully will change, and we'd be more than happy to meet with you, show you around, if it's safe to do so, obviously. So yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much, everybody. It seems as though the questions have come to an end. We've given you the options on the side if you want to contact us directly, either Dave or myself. Please feel free to do so. And have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Have a good evening. Hope to see you next year.